That's become a topic because people are always like, hey, what can I do in the gym to stop my early extension? I'm like, hey man, if I knew what to do in the gym to stop my early extension, like I'm physically fit as shit, right? I wouldn't be early extending. It's not a physical capability issue.
It's a golf swing problem.
It's a golf swing problem, right?
Yep. So for our listeners, they might not know what early extension is.
Oh yeah, hit on that.
So our hips, they have, I guess, every joint, right? But you can have flexion and extension, right? Well, the hips do go into extension, and it's a powerful thing and it's a good thing. But if it happens early, meaning too soon, what you'll notice in the downswing of golfers, usually, I guess it could happen at any point in the swing, but the hips will move in toward the golf ball. So when that happens, the hips move in and the chest moves out. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times what this does is for any golfer who's too steep, meaning the swing is too outside in or the shaft gets really vertical on the way down, if you start to move your hips in and your chest back, well, it actually pushes the club more behind you. So it's a shallowing mechanism. And this is why I said you would be a 14 instead of a 4. If you stayed in your posture and you were super steep, you would swing like 15 degrees over the top. And that's why you'd be terrible. But you've learned that if you early extend, meaning you push your hips in and your chest backs up, the club does shallow a little bit and you can hit it straighter. The problem is it compromises a lot of other functional components. However, you figured out that that's the way to do it. So the hips do go into extension, but the timing of when it happens is super important. So that's what early extension is.
Yeah. And is it still like, so we both did TPI.
Yeah.
I feel like their number was like 80% of amateur golfers early extend, I believe. Yes. Is it still like the most prevalent?
It's got to be close to that. It's very prevalent. Now, I'm going to say that I don't know what percentage of that is due strictly to physical limitations and what percent of that is doing something like you where they're just trying to hit the ball better, right? Mm-hmm. And they just don't understand it, right? So another reason someone might early extend is because the club face is too open, like common problem, right? And if they thrust their hips in and they back their chest out, it gives them some more time and some more room to kind of throw their arms at the ball, and they can get the shaft to sort of square. But again, it ends up being with no shaft lean, like we talked about. So I just see a lot of swing issues that cause early extension or that incentivize you to early extend. Big word there. If you remove the incentive to early extend, a lot of people stop and they just don't do it anymore. But then obviously there's a physical limitation standpoint to it that you're an expert in. And so it would be interesting to know what people have physical traits that just prove to you they're going to early extend, and then what amount of people do it because of something else happening in their swing that forces them to do it.
Yeah, I think, going back to my TPI days, right? Like they're the ones that really kind of paired the two things together. And I think it was like the overhead squat was like their number one thing to where you can see if someone is going to, and it could be an ankle limitation, hips, knees, upper body. So, I mean, it could be anything, right? Like but I think commonly for men, it's probably going to be like a hip thing, right? It's going to be like lack of hip mobility or just lack of strength to like get them into to get that depth in their hip, right? Like they don't have the internal rotation or they don't have the core and hip or glute strength to get it back there either.
100%.
But I do think I think it can be almost anything, right? Like there can be quite a few physical limitations that can cause people to do that.
Yes. And that's why I feel like having a fitness professional, having a golf instructor, like you can identify that. Some people that have the club face in a great spot, their plane is really good, they rotate really well, like that person shouldn't early extend, but if they do, I know it's not because of something happening in their golf swing and you need to go see Cody. Like for you being in the gym, it's like, oh man, this guy has terrible hip mobility. He's got terrible his hamstring strength is 0. So there's things you could be like, this swing could look like anything. But like for me, I can kind of say, okay, based on this and this, I would fix this first and then retest. But obviously with you kind of have the luxury of knowing right away.
Yeah. I mean, the one things I told you when we first started working together, I was like, hey man, I should be able to physically do anything that you asked me to do, except for my wrists. My wrists are a little messed up, but the rest of my body, I should be able to do it. So tell me what to do and I'll figure it out. And without adding some like crazy, like drill, like exercise in the gym, like, oh, let me get this crazy banded thing going on.
No, I've had people ask me like, hey, what could I do in the gym? And honestly, with my TPI background, I probably have enough like kind of knowledge to give them some advice. But like my advice is always, I'm not a fitness professional, I'm a golf professional. So go see someone who really knows what they're talking about, because I don't.
Yeah.
I can tell you if something looks good or bad, but I don't know if it's what you should be doing.
And vice versa. Like when people start asking me about their swing, I'm like, hey man, like I'm a decent golfer. Like I get my way around, but there's a lot of things wrong with my swing. You need to go see someone else to work on your swing.